Calm, focus, happiness. Hey, Mindful Tribe, this is going to be a very interesting conversation. I tell you that because I am here with a certified sex therapist, and she helps motivated clients to discover their sexual selves and deepen their intimate connections. And there's so much we can talk about that's related to mindfulness and sex, because without mindfulness, sometimes sexual experiences aren't really as good as they could be. At least that's my opinion anyway. And we're going to find out what Heather thinks. So I'm here with Heather Shannon. Heather, are you in mindfulness mode today?
I am in mindfulness mode. Excited to be here. Thank you.
Tell us, what does mindfulness mean to you, Heather?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a commonly used word these
It
days.
is.
And for me, it's being present and aware without judgment. That would probably be the shortest definition I could give.
So, in your opinion, how does mindfulness relate to sexual experiences and having the best kind of sexual
Oh my
experiences
gosh,
we can
so
possibly
much.
have? Tell us. Where can
Yeah.
you start with this?
I mean, one of the common issues that I started working with people on when I first, started studying sex therapy, um, was erectile dysfunction.
Right.
And mindfulness is huge for that because, we're often in our heads. And I would say this applies to people with a clitoris as well, who just have like a hard time orgasming. So I would say, like, kind of regardless of gender or anatomy,
Mm-hmm.
um, that it can be a struggle for people, and they get in their heads, and so then we
Yes.
get much more, like worrying about, oh, how do I look, or how do I smell, or should I tell my partner what I'm really into, or is that weird? And so there can kind of be all these thoughts that our brain is offering to us, and we can choose to kind of go down that rabbit hole, which tends to not lead us in a very pleasurable direction. Or I think we can tune into our senses. So, I mean, I think any of the senses are a great way to bring us into the present moment and also bring us more into our body and less into, analysis paralysis, if you will.
That's
So,
very interesting. Yeah. We
yeah.
do get caught up with so many thoughts, ideas, so many stories about how we think things should be. And wow, that can really affect our life in bed, can
Absolutely.
it?
And I mean, I just appreciate you being open to, like, talking about this, having this topic on the show, because I do think it's so important. And part of why I was drawn to specializing in sex therapy as opposed to kind of, anxiety or just general relationships, which is what I was focusing on before, is that I think it's an area where there's just not a lot of consciousness yet. And I think that it exists largely in the dark. But there's a mixed message, right? Because I feel like, we use sex to sell things, and we use sexy pictures and sexy videos and sexy themes. And so it's like, okay, but then also there's still, like purity culture and, slut shaming and things like that, where it's kind of like, this is a mixed message,
Yeah. I'm really curious about something. We have different kinds of medications now, drugs, we have Viagra, we have all these things. Do you
Mm-hmm.
think that has actually been a help or a hindrance to people who just really want to have great sex?
Yeah. I'm going to say it depends. I rarely say always or never, but I would say that it's probably a hindrance in some ways overall on average. That doesn't mean there's not like specific use cases in which it really makes sense. Um, but I think it allows us to circumvent kind of being present in our bodies. Um,
Right.
it's kind of like, instead of really going inward and tuning in and being curious, because I think curiosity is such a huge part of mindful awareness as well. So instead of kind of really tuning into your body and being curious and noticing what thoughts are present, it's kind of like, this is so uncomfortable, must end it, give me the pill.
Well, exactly. And we think about that for a lot of things. You get a sore
Oh yeah.
throat or you get a headache, or the first thing a lot of us think of is, hey, where's there a pill? I need a pill. I need a pill,
Right.
right? I
Right.
mean, we live in that world
Yes.
now, but although I think we're moving away from it a little bit, at least in my country. I don't know whether that's the case everywhere, but do you think we're
Mhm.
moving away from that idea a bit?
Yes and no. I think there's a group of people who are getting really curious about holistic wellness and, biohacking and less traditional paths to feeling healthy. And I think there's a huge mindfulness community and where people are just kind of questioning things and noticing. And I think it's a little bit about relying on your own direct experience rather than thinking everyone else is the expert.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that as like quote unquote expert in the field of sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, sure, like I kind of feel like take what you like and leave the rest from what I say. And really, it's more important that you listen to your own body and what intuitively feels right for you than anything I say. So I think I think people are starting to question authority in a healthy way. Um, and yeah, and trust their own experience. But I still think that's a pretty small minority, to be fully honest.
I think it's really fascinating how people are, at least they seem to be talking more openly about some of these issues these days,
I
and
think
their
so too.
thoughts and their ideas. And men, I think specifically men, and I notice on TikTok there every once in a while I see a video and men are talking about, oh, circumcision
Hmm.
versus non-circumcision, and what's this
Yeah.
about, and what's this,
Yeah.
is this not just mutilation?
I
Is this not
know.
just mutilation of the human body? And what's this about? And then
Yeah.
with the discussion, because a lot of men jump in and discuss it, it's like, oh, I would never want to be uncircumcised. It's just so ugly. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, what? Are you serious? Like, that
Yeah.
is the way our body was created. And I'm
No.
like, are we really that caught up in how we appear? And the answer is yes. So
The
what
answer
are
is yeah.
your comments on this? This is fascinating. I was talking to a
Yes.
rabbi one day about this, and he became so agitated and upset. And he said, it's
Oh.
just so ugly if it's not taken care of. And I'm like,
Wow, that is
really?
fascinating.
That's what you think? Wow.
Yeah,
I'm just amazed.
I'm amazed too. And I think that that's the exact kind of thing that I think of in terms of consciousness. It's like an awakening in terms of our bodies and our sexuality by questioning things like that. It's like, wait, the foreskin is the most sensitive part of the penis.
Uh-huh. There
Why
are
are we
a
getting?
heck of a lot of nerve endings
I
there.
know. Why are we
Do we
getting rid
really
of it?
want to chop that
Yeah.
off?
Right. And if you're making an informed choice and you're like, you know what, I do want to go ahead and do it,
Yes,
great.
that's
Go
different.
ahead. But even the idea of doing it to babies who can't make a choice, so even talking about like consent in that way,
Yeah.
because I do think there's a lot more attention with like female genital mutilation in other countries. But then I was like,
Yes.
wait a second,
Uh-huh.
circumcision is so common here. So I think that yeah, it's important to question that. And again, there's not a right or wrong decision, but it's a social script, and I think
Yes, it
that
is.
that's what it means to kind of have more consciousness with your sexuality. Like society and culture hand us, here's what's normal, here's what's attractive, here's what's acceptable, here's what's sexy, here's what's a little too much, and then we're kind of like, well, do I just want to accept this like list of things that society handed me, or do I want to have my own direct experience and see what feels good and question and tune into what is actually in alignment for myself? And
Yeah,
that, I mean,
which
that's
brings
what I
up the
am.
subject of porn. And it seems to me we're in a space where all of a sudden it may be unspoken, it's not
Mm-hmm.
discussed that much, but
Right.
porn is a pretty common part of many people's lives,
Absolutely.
right? And
Yeah.
what are your comments on porn
Yeah.
and intimacy? And is it a bad
Oh,
thing? Is it a problem? What are your thoughts?
probably have a whole episode on this.
Absolutely, we could. I'm sure. I'm sure we could.
um, so sometimes, I hear comments from married women who feel like, well, I don't want my husband watching porn, so he knows that that's going to ruin our family if he does that.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm like, wow, that's a lot of power to give that. And part of what I want to convey also is that we these are just thoughts. This is not factual. And
Hmm.
sometimes we have these thoughts in our mind and we have them so much, or we've heard them so much from society and culture that we don't even question them. We just think like, well, this is just what's true. And so I think to realize like Like, is this evidence you could present in a court of law? Is it that true?
Mm-hmm.
The judge would be like, yes, porn always ruins families. No, like, this is not, no research on that, like, that's not a thing. But you're allowed to have whatever feelings you have. And if you like the thoughts and they're working for you, then stick with them. But if the thoughts are not working for you, then you got to question it. So that's one thing I hear a lot from people about porn. I do also have clients or former clients who have felt like they were addicted to porn. Mm-hmm. Or masturbation or sex in general. And so I do feel like porn is something that can sort of hijack the brain or rewire some of the neural pathways in a way that isn't working. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, again, I guide people to like, is it working for you? Because if you're like, cool, yeah, I watch porn every day, but I also have like a great sex life with my partner and it gives us fun ideas and it's kind of enriching, and like, awesome, great, go for it. If it's kind of like, yeah, I masturbate too much because I'm always watching porn, then I'm like never really ready to have sex with my partner, and like I have like unrealistic expectations, and my partner feels like they have to perform a certain way or look a certain way, and it's kind of like ruining our sex life, then that's not working for you.
No, it's really, the way you're putting it, it's pretty simple. It works or it doesn't work.
And there's the other thing I'll say is there's different types of porn, because I totally understand the argument, like women aren't treated very well in the porn industry sometimes. And so it's like, I don't want to be a consumer of that. Okay. So there are feminist porn companies. There's audio porn that's, I think, really taking off lately. It's like the podcasting of porn.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting.
So there's an app called Dipsy. There's an app called Quinn. And so I think that that's a nice one for people who want to use their imagination more and don't necessarily want like the whole visual. But that's kind of my thought too. It's like there's different types, you don't have to rule out the entire category of sexual stimuli for different reasons. So that would be kind of my thought for people is, if what you're currently doing or what your partner's currently doing isn't working for you, explore why, explore what your thoughts are, question them, and consider other types of sexual stimuli, like even just watching like a movie that's kind of got a sexy theme, or doing the audio erotica, or like finding an erotic novel or something like that, like there's lots of options.
Do you find that a lot of people's sex challenges have to do with power struggles that they're having in their relationship in general?
Interesting. I haven't seen a ton of that, to be honest, but I think what I see, and I don't know if you qualify this as a power struggle, is, I get a lot of couples who haven't had sex in quite some time and they're trying to reconnect. And I don't know if it's a power struggle, but it might be a little bit. It's more of like a fear of rejection, a fear of being vulnerable because there's been some past rejection. And so it's a little bit of like, I'm not going to be vulnerable first. You be vulnerable first, Right. So it might be a power struggle in that sense, or like, I don't think you're attracted to me, so then I'm not going to stick my neck out there. And the other person's like, well, I don't feel like you're attracted to me either, So it's like, well, someone's got to be a little vulnerable. Actually, both of you do, to like really make this work. So I do think that dynamic comes into play quite a bit. Or it could be someone's feeling resentful. I don't know if that one's as much of like a power dynamic, but absolutely the relationship dynamics 100% come into the bedroom.
Right. Yeah. Can you tell us about maybe someone you've worked with, obviously without, revealing, anything that you can't reveal, but can you tell us about someone you've worked with and how you were able to transition from a place where they were really experiencing problems to a place where, wow, our sexual life is just amazing?
Yeah. Yes, I had a couple that I worked with, and they actually made a testimonial video for me. So I have not put it on the website yet. But I still won't give too much revealing information.
No, of course not.
But I mean, I'll just say they were living in different countries when we started.
Right.
And yeah, by the end, they were happily married and they felt like they were, they had reconnected intimately. They were kind of the example for some of their friends who had been struggling in relationships. And I think they were able to do that because they were both willing to look at their side of it. It wasn't like we're having a standoff to see, who's winning or who's more right or who was more wounded. It's more like, okay, we both really love each other. We both feel like there is something special here that we, don't want to lose. And can we understand like how we hurt each other? Can we sincerely apologize? Can we do some work on forgiveness? I think that's a big one.
Sure, I'm sure
Tough,
it is.
To forgive sometimes and to let go, and actually do that healing. And I think that's a common one with couples in general, to kind of hold on to resentments, and things can kind of just fester in the background if they're not fully resolved. So I think that's an important skill set, because I do see resentment blocking people from sex a lot.
Right.
Yeah. But
So
yeah, it's like if you can get to forgiveness, then you can get through it.
when you work with a couple, how long does it usually take? How many sessions do you usually need to have?
That's pretty hard to say. I think it takes a while, if we're being fully honest. I mean, this couple that I worked with, it was definitely over a year. It might have been 2 years.
Right.
I mean, keep in mind they were like literally far apart
Sure.
when
Yeah.
we started. So there was a lot of stuff that needed to change. But I mean, these are patterns that tend to be pretty entrenched,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's kind of layers to it. So people are usually going to see some benefits, within the first few months. But then I also think once they are seeing the benefits, they're like, oh, let's keep doing this because it's working.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I think that people will get better at communication. That one can happen pretty quickly if people are willing to learn about it and to realize, oh, okay, like our emotions are not bad. And it's not bad to talk about feeling hurt or to make requests of my partner or to share what I would like instead. Like that's going to actually lead us to feeling more connected. So I think it's that little bit of bravery at the beginning to be a little bit vulnerable and not do the power struggle that gets people to feel safe with each other. I think that's a big part of it at the end of the day. It's like if you can both be vulnerable, you can build some safety. And I think people can talk about that, and that is something I talk about with couples at the beginning is like, how do we kind of create the safe conditions to have these conversations? So it's like a meta conversation. And then I think people can be like, okay, so if I say stuff, you're not going to leave me,
Right. Sure.
Right. And like I'm trained in the Gottman couples counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something they talk about too, is like in this work that we're doing, can we create a container of 3 or 6 months or however long where you can agree that like no one's leaving during that time and you're going to keep showing up and doing the work.
Right. That sounds very important. Your
Yeah.
website is heathershannon.co. Is that right?
That is right. Yes.
Dot
Thank you.
co, and it's Heather, Heather. Shannon is Shannon. So you can check out the website heathershannon.co. But what's exciting is that you are going to be launching a podcast, and the
Yay!
podcast is going to be called Ask a Sex Therapist, and that's coming up in a month or so. So probably by the
Yeah.
time this is published, that is going to be in place. And I know that before I hit record, we were talking about this, and you said you're going to do a bunch of episodes, first just you, and then later you'll do
Mm-hmm.
some interviews. I'm
Yep.
really curious, what will some of those initial episodes be about? What will the topics be?
Yeah. This was actually fun coming up with my list of like, what do people really need to know right off the bat?
Right.
And so I've already started outlining some of the episodes. And one of them is, what turns you on?
Sure.
Because in having these conversations with your partner, sometimes it's like, well, I'm not wanting to have more sex because my partner's not really like approaching me in the way like I would want them to do it. And then I'm like, okay, well, how do you want them to? And it's like, well, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of that. And I was kind of like, even though I'm a sex therapist, I think like part of that resonates with me too, where it's like, have we ever really had to like articulate and verbalize, like, here's my list of turn-ons almost, you know? And I don't think, you know, most of us have in that organized of a way anyways. Sure, we might be like, ooh, this would be hot, or that's hot, or I love it when you do that. But like to really almost like give your partner like, here's a roadmap. Like if you do these things, this will work.
Right.
Because sometimes I think that's what our partner needs to feel confident too. Like, okay, cool, I totally get you now. So that's going to be an episode where I walk people through how do we kind of have that roadmap for ourselves. And obviously it's like a living thing that can change at any moment. And then how do we communicate that to our partner? I'm going to have an episode on the clitoris, so that's going to be pretty fun. I do feel like the clitoris is somewhat misunderstood.
I bet,
and,
yes.
you know, the more that I have learned as a sex therapist, the more I realize just how inadequate our sex education is. So I think that there's, you know, a growing group of adults who are realizing that and kind of like, yeah, like I would like to learn things that are pleasure focused, that are positive about sex, and not just like you will die and get diseases and get pregnant.
Scientific.
And this is ruin your life, you know?
Right.
I made a little YouTube video a few years ago about the health benefits of orgasm. And it was just so fun for me to be like, oh my God, this is actually healthy for you? Like I was never taught that. Like, this is good for your lymph system. This is good for detoxing. This is good for like aches and pains. Like, what? So it's very exciting. So I think the clitoris is one of those things though, where it's like, there's, you know, there's a lot of nerve endings. It takes up more space than people realize. There's erectile tissue in the clitoris, and it's pretty cool. You know, people need to find the clitoris too.
Totally. Well, this is going to be a fascinating podcast. Ask a sex therapist. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm excited to do it. I want to be like you when I grow up, Bruce.
Well, I have been doing a lot of episodes for this show. Yes. You'll be in the episode 800 something. So.
Oh my God. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's a lot of episodes for sure. And I've learned so much from people, and I'm learning a lot from you. It's fascinating to talk to you about this topic. But as we move forward, I want to ask you a question about bullying. And when it comes to bullying, I'm sure there's something you could talk about that's related to sex, but I find that bullying is very often related to mindfulness too. Do you have a story you can share with us about bullying as it may relate to mindfulness?
I actually like that what you said about it relating to sex, because this is not about a specific client, but I've seen this more than once, where one partner is kind of pestering, coercing, manipulating their partner into having sex with them. And yeah, now that you're kind of bringing the mindfulness to it, I actually think that's a huge component, because one of the main reasons I got into sex therapy is because I think the way the culture is, there's a lot of shame and stigma around certain aspects of sexuality. And it could be, I actually think male bisexuality is one of those. I think there's a lot of men who have interest in some other men, but, you know, are kind of told like, no, you're either gay or straight. Women can be bisexual, but men, no. That's an interesting one. So I think that when there's an area of shame or stigma, or when someone's feeling hurt and rejected and maybe doesn't have the capacity or the training or the skill set to be with that, you know, because I think mindfulness is a lot of that is just being with whatever your experience is. They kind of get more emotionally reactive. And I think that's where the, you know, quote unquote sexual bullying can come in. So I think if people are able to develop the capacity to accept themselves, to not judge their own sexuality, to not take their partner's maybe lack of interest personally, and to just see that like that's what's going on in their mind, you know, like in a way that has nothing to do with you. And to process any hurt that you have without judging it, I think that's huge. So I feel like when you do that, it really frees you up to have great sexual communication, which is, you know, another topic on my early podcast episodes, because it's key. It's like, if you can communicate well about sex, you're going to probably have a pretty good sex life.
Well, that's good. good to know and good to hear. Like it's a really important piece of information, I think, that we all need to hear.
Yeah, I think so too. And just for people to know that, hey, like whatever you are into, however you identify that, like maybe that's okay. And if something doesn't feel good or healthy, like that's, a good time to reach out to a sex therapist or someone who can help you. But um there's no normal. I kind of feel like none of us are normal, and therefore kind of all of us are normal.
Right, right. That's
Yeah.
interesting too.
Hmm.
Well, fascinating. As we move forward in the interview, I want to ask you 5 quick answer questions. So
Oh,
just
okay.
30-second answers are
Oh my
perfect.
gosh.
The
Okay,
first
let's
one is
go.
this: who is one person who has been a powerful mindfulness influence in your life?
Ooh, this is such a good question. Eckhart Tolle, and I'm
Oh,
actually going on the retreat in Hawaii in
you
less than a
are?
week. A week,
Oh
well, a week
my
from today.
gosh.
I'm doing
Oh,
a 6-day
wow.
retreat in Hawaii. I'm like obsessed with Eckhart Tolle.
Wow, that is going to be an unbelievable experience, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'll report back.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, my second question is about emotions and how mindfulness has affected how you deal with your emotions.
Yeah, I will be really honest. Like, this is still a work in progress for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that I'm a lot kinder to myself about certain emotions. And then I also noticed that there's other emotions where I can beat myself up still. And then I'm just noticing the judgment that's still there and like, okay, like this is still here. This is something that, I can still work on. But then it's almost like not judging myself for the judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be a little bit layered there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk
Hmm.
about breathing and how breathing
Hmm.
has maybe not only affected your life as it pertains to mindfulness, but what
Hmm.
about breathing as it pertains to people who are having challenges with their sexual relationship?
That's a good one, because I do think breath can help us a lot with sex. Um, Oftentimes, in bed or not, we can kind of tense up and almost like be holding our breath, and um, a lot of people tend to do that, leading to orgasm. And especially if you're somebody who maybe struggles with orgasm, try deep breathing, try relaxing your muscles a little bit, and just see, how the energy flows with that. But yeah, with me, I've done all sorts of different breathing. I've done some like holotropic breath work workshops that I've attended. I've gone through periods where I do like the Wim Hof YouTube video in the morning. I have done like a Dr. Andrew Weil has like the 4-7-8 breathing for relaxation. So I've done quite a bit with breathing, but I notice when I'm stressed, my breathing is more shallow and tense, but it's like a clue to me. It's like a signal, like, oh, okay, I can relax a little more. Like, good to be aware.
I'm looking forward to your podcast, Ask a Sex Therapist. But what about books? Are there any books that you recommend that can help either with
Yes.
mindfulness or with our sex life?
Yes. So I'm an internal family systems therapist, and I'll hold this up for anyone who's watching on video. So You're the One You've Been Waiting For by Dr. Richard Schwartz. And it's awesome. So it's an internal family systems book, which incorporates mindfulness, by the way. So mindfulness is one of the key components of IFS. And this one is about kind of like, I would almost say, like, what are our blind spots? What are our points of emotional reactivity in a relationship? And how can we kind of own that? So when it says you're the one you've been waiting for, it's kind of like, no, stop looking to that other person. They're not going to do it for you. They're not going to make you feel a certain way internally. Your thoughts about them will, the way your parts react to them will. But so I find it really empowering for anyone who has like an anxious attachment or avoidant attachment style in particular, um, and struggles, to feel safe and secure with intimacy. So I love it. I think it's amazing.
Oh, fantastic. And that's so true with mindfulness. We have to realize that hey, everything starts right here. Everything
Mm-hmm.
starts here. And you're the one you've been waiting for. That's a great title. And would you repeat
Yeah.
the name of the author for us?
Yeah, Richard Schwartz. So he's the
Okay.
creator of internal family systems as a method. He's written a bunch of books, but this one's pretty accessible. It's not, written for clinicians. It's
Mm-hmm.
accessible to anyone. I would even say it's accessible if you're not super familiar with IFS. It kind of breaks it down enough, and it mentions just like common relationship patterns and like what parts of you might be triggered. So there might be a part of you that has like abandonment issues, or there might be a part of you that's got a really strong inner critic and is always trying to, or people pleaser, you know. It also talks about aspects of ourselves that we kind of cut off or exile in relationships commonly. So it's, yeah, just fascinating. I feel like this book should be more popular compared to some other really popular ones I've read.
Well,
I'm like,
let's get the word out there. Absolutely.
Let's get the word out.
And I look forward to reading it myself because it sounds
cool.
like a fantastic book. Yeah. I've been really excited to talk to you today, and I feel like you've really given us a lot of food for thought, a lot of bits of expertise that we can really apply. And as we wrap up the episode, I just want to ask you if you have just sort of a final thought, some words of advice, some final ideas that we can use to enhance our lives, and specifically maybe our sex life.
Yeah. So I'm going to tie it into the internal family system. So one of the concepts in internal family systems is self-energy. And it very much correlates with mindfulness. It's this kind of spacious, calm, confident, creative, intuitive essence of who we are. And when we can tap into that, you know, some people tap in through being in nature, some people through meditation, all different ways to kind of tap into that, then we can handle anything. You know, because that self energy knows, it's kind of this being state. It's a knowing. It's not very action oriented, but when we can be led by that, as opposed to our parts that might be more reactive, it's going to go well.
Well, thanks for that advice. And thanks for being on Mindfulness Mode. It's great having you here, Shannon.
Thank you, Bruce. This was awesome to be here. And thanks to your audience.
And I'm going to repeat that. It's great having you here, Heather. Heather Shannon, yes. It's been really great having you on the show, Heather. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Thanks for having me, Bruce.
Thanks a lot. Bye now.
Bye.
Hey, Mindful Tribe. Are you experiencing anxiety? Are you experiencing stress and tension and feeling as though, it's just difficult to move on? That describes the clients I work with. Clients who have had an awful lot of problem with anxiety and stress, and maybe some kind of habits that are holding them back. And through hypnosis, we get to the bottom of it. We get right in there and we talk about it. But with hypnosis, we get right into what is causing some of this in your subconscious mind, because your subconscious mind represents about 90 to 95% of your thoughts, and you don't even realize what those thoughts are much of the time. And through hypnosis, we can get in there and we can work at this. Doesn't mean we're going to change what's going on in your subconscious mind. It means we're going to become more aware of it and then deal with it and think of it differently in the conscious mind. And I am so happy to have helped so many people with their anxiety through hypnosis and coaching. And you could be the next person. If you're listening to this episode and you would like to let go of some of this anxiety, send me an email, bruce@mindfulnessmode.com. Put coaching session in the subject line, coaching session, send it to bruce@mindfulnessmode.com. And I would love to have you on a Zoom call for a free session where we can talk about what's going on and what's happening and how can I help you. Because that's one thing I truly know about myself, is that I really love helping other people, and I would love to help you. So thanks for listening. Take what we've learned today to reach new heights of calm, focus, and happiness. Stay in the mode.